Hello, and welcome to the Creative Actors Lab podcast. But today we're going to do something a little bit different. We've got as a special guest me, Queen Evi, and I'm sitting in the hot seat. So sit back and relax and learn a little bit more about me and developing a character right here on the Creative Actors Lab podcast. Hi there, my name is Kelly Cody Grimm.
And I'm Max Grimm.
And we are Creative Actors Lab. What we want to do is just talk a little bit about how you can bring creativity into your everyday life. All right, sweeties. So here we are. I actually have my Grand Inquisitor sitting off to the side, and he's going to be asking me all sorts of lovely little questions. I've got my little pop screen here, if you happen to be seeing the video, so that if I go bah and bah, that you can see all that. So
ta and ka.
Ta and ka. Thank you, Grand Inquisitor. I must say you look charming tonight, sweetie.
Mm-hmm.
So what we're going to do is just kind of play around with when you're in character and you're asked questions as that character. How are you going to respond? Well, bloody well in character, So that's one of the things we're going to explore tonight, sweeties, or this morning or afternoon, whenever you're listening to this podcast. So, all right, Sir Max.
Yes.
What would you like to ask me?
All right. About where you grew up.
Where I grew up. Well, I grew up in a very small type of island, not too far from a lot of the other fairy tale realms. And, the thing about growing up in a small island, you're very in touch with nature. And you get to know everyone in the kingdom. It's not like we're sitting up high on a hill and then we're judging everyone. So, I got to go down and really talk to people, and I would help them do things like some of the farming. I would bring the fruit up to the castle and things like that. And we'd invite people to come and have what I think in your verbiage is a potluck.
Okay.
So we had a potluck. So, we were very, very open, I think because we were a small island and not really influenced by a lot of the mainland, sweetie. So I think we just knew to be open and gracious and lovely. And that's what we really wanted to do. There's not really a hierarchy. It might have been that I was born into this house, but I really did feel like it was the people's castle or house.
Okay. What was your favorite subject in school?
Oh, well, definitely English, sweetie. Okay. I loved reading English and poetry.
Okay. All right. Good.
And I'm going to use the S word, Shakespeare. Mm-hmm. I love Shakespeare. And, always had hoped that Prince Jamie, that he and I might do Romeo and Juliet together, but it was not to be. He just decided to row off and go on to the mainland where there was a little bit more going on. And not too much into the island life he was, or when he got a chance to go, he left.
What was your favorite meal when you were a child?
Oh, favorite meal when I was a child. The cook, and we sit there, she would make me this delicious boiled chicken, but she put all sorts of lovely spices on it, and then she'd wrap it up in bay leaves, and then she'd put some salt and pepper, and after it was boiled a little bit, then she'd bake it. And then we just peel off the bay leaves together, and then we'd, sit down and have some boiled potatoes. There's a lot of potatoes on my island.
Okay.
So we'd have that, and then we'd have some other greens. And I just loved hearing about what her life was, where she was, because she wasn't from our island. She came over from another island, far away in the Pacific. And that's, how she knew how to cook with different leaves, like banana leaves or bay leaves and things like that. And so it was really so unique, and I'm so grateful I had that.
What was her name?
La Chera.
La Chera. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And let's see. What is the main export of the land that you come from?
Oh, okay. Well, the land of Clondovia. Clondovia, we like to say it's clandestine, that it was Clondovia. Okay. Our main export really actually is herbs and spices. Uh-huh. So we've got bay leaves, we've got peppers, which you can ground black peppers, but then you can also do banana peppers. So rather spicy on my island. We've also got fruits, different things like a lot of tropical fruits, oranges, lemons, limes, things like that. But it's quite lovely, actually.
Very good. When was the first time that you ever fell in love?
Well, that might have been with Prince Jamie. I think we both started going to school together. I was like such a little girl. I was like maybe about 5 or 6, and he had the curliest little hairs, just the little trindles that would go off, and then the sun would hit them, and it would be all blonde and everything, and he looked like a bloody buggery angel, sweeties. And I just looked at him and I went, oh, this is my angel. And he was so sweet. He'd always tell me how nice my hair was and, how nice my gowns looked and everything. And even though he was a little one, he would come over and he'd kiss my hand. And I'm like, oh, Jamie, that's so sweet. I mean, while the other little boys were, throwing, balls and, fighting and wanting to joust and sword play, Jamie just, we like to sit and talk, and we would read Shakespeare together.
Do you have any brothers and sisters?
I don't. I'm an only child. Yes, so that's why I'm Evi. I guess one might say you might envy that, but I don't know. But I feel like I didn't have brothers or sisters, but because I was kind of like the island's child, as the princess and then eventually the queen, I had so many friends that would come and talk. I don't know that familial relationship that I feel like I missed that all that much because I had so many children to play with growing up.
What was your father's name?
Edward.
And your mother's name?
Alatra.
Alatra.
Mm-hmm.
And were they from the same island, or did they?
Yes, they grew up. They were part of a family, centuries of families that had grown up on the castle that we had. Okay. I mean, I say castle. It was like just a really nice big house, 12 rooms and things like that. But, you also had, guest houses. I don't call them servants' quarters because I think that's very elitist. But, we had guest houses. So if people needed a place to stay and they were working and helping us out at the castle, they had, these lovely little houses. I guess you would call them Airbnbs now, sweetie, but that's what we had. So we wanted to make sure that people were taken care of.
What makes you mad?
Willful ignorance, sweetie.
Okay.
It's like,
Yep. I got you.
It's like you've got the facts in front of you and then you're just denying it. And it's like, why? And I try to sit there and go, not everyone's brains work the same way. But there are times when I'm like going, oh, bugger, really? So, yes.
Okay. Have you traveled a lot?
Yes, I have gone to Europe.
Okay.
And I found things. It was so interesting, again, living on an island, or rather condensed, shall we say. But what's so interesting about Europe is that you can go not very far. I know you're from what they call the United States.
Mm-hmm.
So you could go state to state to state, but in Europe, it's almost like where you would go state to state, you go country to country. And in a very short distance, you've got a completely different set of people, a completely different history. It's so fascinating.
Okay. What's the difference between right and wrong?
The difference between right and wrong. That's a many-layered question, sweetie, darling. The difference between right and wrong, I think what is right is trying to help people and be kind and open to other ideas. And what's wrong is denying what's right in front of you, what's right in your face, and say, no, because I refuse to acknowledge it. And now not only am I refusing to acknowledge it, I'm going to dig my heels in. And no matter how ridiculous I sound, I can't go back on it because then I'll sound more ridiculous. But the thing is, darling, sweet, is everyone else is sitting there going, they're ridiculous. And they don't bloody well get it. So that's, to me, that's just wrong. I, a lot of times will say, you know what? Now, I could be wrong. However, I'm thinking this. And what I notice is when you do that and you admit I may not be seen, all the defenses seem to go down and people are more likely to listen to you. But the more you're like, I say this without fear of contradiction, people are going to try to contradict you.
Okay. What was a time in your life when you were the happiest?
When I was the happiest, when Jamie and I would make cookies with Lashira. And, we would, go, and she would let us do, they were the kind of cookies that you did thumbprints and then you'd put different jams in them.
Oh, I love those.
Oh, and with tea, they were absolutely lovely sweeties.
I love those.
So, and then Jamie and I would have our tea party. With Lashira, she would sit down and she would have tea with us. She didn't have to serve us. I often liked to serve her. And she would let me know that you have to be very careful with the milk and the tea. If you don't serve that correctly, you're a barbarian, according to her. So, yeah,
I think I know what you're talking about there. Okay. When you grew up, what did you want to be as a child?
When the expectation is you're going to take over the island and be queen. But, I wanted to be a playwright like Shakespeare. And I wanted to write stories and tell stories. And to a certain extent, I am doing that now. I'm interpreting other people's tales, whether it's the Brothers Grimm, whether it's Hans Christian Andersen, Charles Perrault, Aesop's Fables, other people, other writers. That is something that I try to do. Let's look at the interpretation. How can we change this around?
Do you have any regrets?
I regret that I may have driven Jamie away because I wanted, I think, more than he was willing to give me. And rather than just accepting what was there, I was pushing for more. And I regret that because it could have grown. But I was so young, sweeties. I was maybe 15, 16 years old. And you know how it is. You fall madly in love. You're so in love. And literally, when people say you are blinded with love, it's like I kept on seeing little hearts just kept on going up and up and up. And every time I saw him, my girl flushed and everything. But, he wanted to explore. He wanted to go beyond the island. And, we do write. He is a sailor. Yes. I believe he actually landed in all United States on a place called Fire Island.
Uh-huh.
Yes. So, and he's had a grand time there. So, I'm so happy that he's happy.
Good.
Yes.
Good.
Yes. So.
If you could redo one thing in your life, what would it be?
I did end up marrying, a gentleman, and we had 2 daughters, and I love him so, so much. And I think I would like to tell him that more. I like to be a little bit closer to him because, then he goes off and he's off on the seas and things like that. Then he comes back. And then when he comes back, we're so happy to be together. But, I think that's something I need to make more.
What are your daughters' names?
Oh, what are my daughters' names? Philandia.
Okay.
Philandia and Dashnella.
Dashnella.
Mm-hmm.
Very interesting.
Yes.
What's your favorite season?
Well, what's interesting is on the island, I did notice that when I went to Europe, you could see more of, winter, spring, winter, spring, summer, or fall. All you've got to do is call sweetie. Mm-hmm. And I'll be there. Yes, I will. Because you've got a friend. I think for me, when I was in Europe, I loved the fall because the weather was so nice and everything. On the island, even if it's winter, it might drop down to the 70s and then everybody throws on every sweater that someone from the mainland has given them.
Okay.
So that's what we've got going on there.
What's your favorite character in Shakespeare?
All right. So my favorite Shakespearean character.
Okay, Hamlet.
Hamlet. Oddly enough, and she doesn't have a very big part, but Lady Capulet in Romeo and Juliet.
Okay.
She does try to explain to her daughter, who's, just a little bit like Jamie and I, just head over heels in love, and you're so blinded by love. And she's, therefore have done much love, much grief shows much love, but much grief shows still some want of wit. And, she's just trying to guide her daughter, and Juliet's so headstrong and everything. And I think she's rather underestimated. I mean, sometimes she's considered a villain, and I wish she wasn't. I absolutely, I think Lady Capulet, is a very unsung character in Romeo and Juliet. Everyone's all about Juliet.
Okay.
And then also, I mean, just as another one is you have the nurse. I think the nurse is lovely. Very funny, comic relief, but then she brings a lot of gravitas when she has to. Hamlet, to be or not to be, that is the question. And just that one line, it encapsulates all of our existential angst as human beings. And I just think how that's written, it's fabulous, sweetie.
What's your favorite sandwich?
Oh, my favorite sandwich, as in the Earl of Sandwich.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know the background of sandwiches?
I kind of do, actually, yes.
You do? All right.
About gambling.
Yes. The Earl of Sandwich was a great gambler, and so rather than going from the table when he was gambling, he would just have them bring his meats between two slices of bread, and then that became known as a sandwich.
Mm-hmm.
My favorite sandwich, I'll tell you again, going back to when I was a little girl, peanut butter and jelly on toast.
Yeah.
And ginger snaps for dessert.
Yeah. Indeed. Okay, let's see. I'm just going to ask a couple of more.
Mm-hmm.
How do the people on the island think of you?
How do they think of me? I like to think that they know that they can come to me if they need resources. I'm not, again, one of those persons that's going to go, well, I'm the queen, I was the princess, and my dad was the king, and my mum was also a queen at one point, so blah, blah, blah. And I've got all the manners, and you don't. No, I'm like, no, we're human beings. As far as that goes, I've got a title, but that doesn't make me above you. So if they need anything, I've lent out dresses to young girls who, had their own Jamies. And I could relate to that. So I'm like, of course, my daughters are also that way too. They're like, what can we do, Mummy? Because just staying in the castle and going, oh, wow, this is like the tapestries are really nice. It's boring. So, we like walking out on the beach. I love to hear children who are seeing the beach for the first time, squealing and running, and you hear the seagulls calling. And, to me, that really is heaven on earth. So, those are the moments, and you can't sit in a castle and say, oh, well, I'm above it all, because you're really not.
Okay, 2 more questions.
All right, sweetie.
What's your favorite quote?
My favorite quote would definitely be well-behaved women never made history.
Okay.
And that's one thing when we are talking about fairy tales is so often the young ingenues, if they stand up for themselves, they're considered disobedient, and then it's up to everyone else to try to train them to be more proper. And I think that's one thing I really appreciate about my parents is they never really went there. They were just like, all right, Evie, well, maybe you could have done a little bit better. Maybe your manners could have been a little bit better there. And they guide me rather than scold me. And, and I appreciated that. So,
okay.
I think it's okay for our daughters to question things and our sons, to stand in their power and say, oh, right. But, and I think that's the thing that I really do like about that I notice unlike other countries around the world is the women. Some countries, the women are expected to be in very regimented castes or classes or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, again, on our island, it's like, all right, fine. The men and the women were all, my prime minister, I take his advice just as I do the head of our parliament, who also happens to be a woman. So there's that give and take. And then if people from other countries want to come and be a part of who we are, that's fine. That's lovely. I learned so much, the Shira brought so much to our country with her cooking traditions that we wouldn't have had before. And the culture and the colors and the tapestries, it's all, it's so amazing.
Okay. Last question. How do you want to be remembered?
How do I want to be remembered? You ask all the multi-layered questions, don't you, sweetie?
That's why they pay me the big bucks, you know.
They do, I know. When we had you come out here, it was, it was for a pretty good price.
Mm-hmm.
How do I want to be remembered? I think I want people to remember me as someone who was compassionate, who was intelligent, and who really did care about it and could see humanity. I think so much in the world, it's so easy to say it's us versus them. But those two words I love using. And if everyone thought of it more, I think the world might be a better place, is the universal truths. What do we all go through as human beings? And that's what anybody that comes onto the island, that's what I'm like, oh my goodness, is this person who's just come on, she's a young mother. She's got to be tired. She's got to be worried about what her children are going to do. Better make herself at home. And she may start talking and she might have a viewpoint that I don't necessarily agree with, but rather than demonizing it, it's like, oh, that's interesting. Why do you feel that way? I saw one thing that we do on the island sometimes is if you do have people who seem to be diametrically opposed, as far as philosophies go, is without telling them that they are in different philosophical camps or whatever, we have them build things together. Let's build a house for some of the new people that are here. Let's build some furniture. And then they get to talking and things like that. And then after they've done that, we'll go, well, did you know that this person says that they believe this and this person says that they believe that? And yet, while you both have very different viewpoints, guess what? You just went and built this beautiful table together. You built a foundation together. You broke for a garden together and you had lovely talks because you were seeing each other person to person. You weren't looking at each other as adversaries. And I think if we could just do more of that, I just think the world would be a better place. And I feel like a lot of times leaderships, it's just so much easier to pit people against each other, rather than say, no, we're all humans and let's embrace that humanity. Whether you're a mum that's got this belief or a mum that's got that belief, believe me, if you're 3 months into being a mum with an infant, you're tired. It doesn't really matter which your philosophical viewpoint is. You're tired, so let's respect that. Those
are my questions. Thank you for your time.
All right. Well, thank you, sweetie. Well, no, you can call me Evi, sweetie.
Well, thank you. That's very humble and refreshing.
Yes.
So thank you so much for your time.
You are quite welcome, sweetie. And for those of you that would like to learn a little bit more about Queen Evi, I do post on Instagram. I do also post on TikTok. There's a YouTube channel called Evi Spills the Tea. I don't try to spill too much tea because that's wasteful, but we do look at different fairy tales and things like that. So, I understand your last name is Grimm. Are you related to the brothers Grimm?
I am not, but I wish I were.
Oh, right. Interesting. We'll have to talk about them, sweetie.
Yes, we will.
All right. Well, thank you all so much. It's been so delightful. And Sir Max Grimm, thank you so much, as always.
You are quite welcome.
Thank you all so much. Until next time.
We appreciate you guys tuning in, and keep in mind that you can catch us on our social media, Creative Actors Lab on Instagram and Facebook, and by the same name on YouTube. And for more on what we do, you can go to our website,
creativeactorslab.com, all one word. Thank you for listening. Stay curious, make art, not war. Much love until next time.